All right, let's dive right into this explainer. So, quick question. Are you unknowingly financing a giant barrier to your own financial freedom? I mean, have you ever looked at that shiny new laptop or that slick camera sitting on your desk and thought of it as an absolute wealth killer? Probably not, right? We're kind of trained to view all this gear as essential tools of the trade. But today we're going to break down exactly why your digital setup might actually be a highly sophisticated wealth killer, just secretly sabotaging your journey to that crucial first $100,000 milestone. Honestly, it's time we take a huge step back and totally rethink the normalization of our spending. Somehow, we've convinced ourselves that treating a $3,000 laptop or a $2,000 camera as just a mandatory baseline business necessity is totally normal. It's just the cost of doing business, right? Well, we see it literally everywhere online, so we assume we have to do it too. But today, we're challenging that assumption head-on. We're going to see if that high-end gear is actually helping you build a business, or if it's just silently keeping you broke.
Which brings us to Section 1, the tech payment trap. Let's get into it.
Look, we've all been there. You're scrolling through your favorite creators' What's in My Bag content, and suddenly that incredibly expensive, shiny new equipment feels like something you absolutely must have to succeed. You see that pristine desk, the ultimate ultra-wide monitor setup, the sleek aluminum bodies of the latest tech, and boom, the emotional trigger flips. You tell yourself, man, if I just had that specific gear, my business would finally take off. But that feeling, that intense, immediate sense of necessity, that is exactly what pulls you into the trap. Let's be brutally honest with ourselves for a second. How many of us have financed a $3,000 MacBook Pro, completely justifying it for business, only to literally just use it for scrolling Twitter and answering basic text emails? Yeah, that is the trap in action. Now, we all know about the massive danger of the car payment trap, right? Financing a depreciating vehicle that loses a huge chunk of its value the literal second you drive it off the lot. Financial experts yell at us about this constantly. But here's the wild part. Digital professionals are falling into the exact same trap right at their desks. We call it the tech payment trap. And guys, it is the exact same financial mistake. It just has a smaller physical footprint and a glowing logo on the back. To put this into perspective, right now the average American car payment is a staggering $767 a month. Just think about that. Nearly $800 a month poured into an asset that drops in value every single day. But hey, before we judge those car buyers too harshly, a lot of us in the digital space are making the exact same error. We're stringing together these monthly payments on cameras, microphones, computers, easily putting hundreds of dollars a month into finance tech. While the car sits out in the driveway, silently losing its resale value with every passing hour, your overpriced laptop is sitting on your desk doing the exact same thing. It is aging by the minute, and you are basically paying a premium for the privilege of watching it happen. Let's move on to Section 2. This is what we call the innovation tax. Welcome to the innovation tax. What is this? Well, it's the steep financial penalty of financing the absolute newest tech over 36 months just to stay relevant, and it carries a highly negative return on investment. If you're shelling out hundreds of bucks a month to get the latest models every 12 to 24 months, you really aren't making a smart business investment. Instead, you are paying this brutal innovation tax. It's a recurring, ridiculously expensive fee you voluntarily pay just for that fleeting feeling of being cutting edge, rather than focusing on the actual practical utility of the tools.
Just think about the depreciation curve for a second. Much like that car driving off the lot, the most massive drop in value on high-end electronics happens in the very first year. Then, by years 2 and 3, the drop is comparatively minor. Yet, somehow, we've completely normalized the idea that we need the newest model the very second it's released. When you buy brand new, you are voluntarily taking on that massive first-year cliff. You are completely destroying the value of your newly financed gear before you even really put it to work to generate revenue. You're paying the absolute maximum price for the absolute steepest loss in value. It's crazy when you really think about it.
All right, Section 3, the brutal math. Prepare yourselves. So, look at the stark contrast between these two strategies. On one hand, say you finance a $5,000 setup over 3 years. You aren't just paying the sticker price. You're getting hit with a negative return on investment. Now let's look at the alternative, what we call the boring stack. You take that exact same cash and just dump it into broad market index funds. Why is this the ultimate wealth hack? Because instead of bleeding value on your desk, that money buys you actual ownership in the world's most profitable companies. By choosing to finance the gear instead, you are losing the massive opportunity cost of what that $5,000 could have earned, compounding at a historic average of 8%.
You are literally trading your long-term compounding wealth for a slightly faster processor today. The harsh reality of building wealth is that it's slow, and honestly, it's a little bit boring. Reaching your first $100,000 is almost entirely a savings game. The math clearly shows that even if you somehow manage incredible 20% returns on your investments, which is huge, by the way, the vast majority of your early wealth still comes entirely from the raw cash you simply choose not to spend. You cannot outinvest bad spending habits early on. Actually, scratch that. You just have to save your way to your first big milestone. The heavy lifting is done by the capital you preserve, not just the capital you grow. And the long-term damage of these spending habits? It's staggering. Every leaked dollar stops compounding at 8%. Every single dollar you leak into a shiny tech payment is a dollar that isn't working for you in the background. Over time, that compounding loss becomes absolutely monumental. That unnecessary flashy camera body you bought today literally could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time you hit your 60s. It is essentially a massive robbery of your future self, all for the sake of a cool aesthetic desk setup right now. No way is that worth it.
Okay, moving to Section 4, Escaping the Debt Cycle.
Thankfully, we can actually fix this. We have an escape plan to break this cycle and protect your wealth-building journey. Let's quickly move through these 3 steps and see how they build a much healthier financial foundation for your digital work, ensuring your setup is finally making you money instead of draining it.
Step 1. Buy 2 to 3-year-old tech. Remember that massive year 1 depreciation drop we talked about a minute ago? Well, by purchasing tech that's just a couple of years old, you elegantly sidestep that loss. Let someone else absorb the financial hit. And let's be totally realistic about performance here. A 3-year-old processor today is still light years ahead of what most of us actually need for daily digital business. You get equipment that's incredibly powerful and perfectly capable, but without paying that ridiculous early adopter penalty.
Step 2 is the 24-hour rule. This is a mandatory waiting period of 24 hours before purchasing literally any non-essential tech. Implementing this rule is your absolute best defense against emotional spending. We've all been caught in that late-night online shopping haze, right? Where your brain somehow convinces you that buying a new lens at 1 in the morning will magically double your creative output. The next time you feel that emotional trigger, force a 24-hour pause. Just close the tab. You will be amazed at how quickly the desperate need for that new gear completely evaporates after a good night's sleep.
Finally, Step 3, the 1% rule. Applying this rule serves as your ultimate behavioral safeguard. Simply put, this means limiting your total gear budget to just 1% of your total revenue or income. So if you make $50,000 a year, your gear budget is capped at $500. Period. It places a strict, undeniable ceiling on your spending, making sure you aren't over-leveraging yourself for equipment. It's the boundary line that keeps your cash securely locked in your compounding index funds instead of just rotting away in a depreciating camera body or a slightly thinner laptop.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Is your setup actually making you money, or is it just quietly draining it? Look around at the equipment on your desk right now. Think about the monthly payments, the constant urge to upgrade, and the true return on investment. I challenge you to deeply consider this question before you ever click finance on a piece of digital gear again. Remember, hitting that first $100,000 is totally achievable, but keeping your money out of the innovation tax is the absolute first big step to getting there.